3 premium oils, 1 Ford F-150, 50,000 miles. The most expensive oil won on endurance. It wasn't even close. Amsoil ran nearly 20,000 miles and came back with a TBN of 3.8. Pennzoil made it past 9,000 with reserve remaining. Mobil 1 looked healthy at 7,500. Lab said push it further. But here's what 50,000 miles actually taught me. The oil that survives longest isn't always the oil that makes sense. Because when I ran the math, price per mile, drain intervals, filter costs, actual protection needed for how most people drive, the winner changed, and it wasn't Amsoil. Stick around. The oil I'd spend my own money on might surprise you. Let's get into it. At 10,000 miles, Amsoil looked almost unbeatable. If you pay Amsoil money, this is the evidence you want. Signature Series 5, W30 entered with one massive advantage: headroom. Amsoil is not selling an oil that merely survives a normal interval. Its reputation is built around protection when conditions get harder and intervals get longer. That sounds like marketing until you look at actual F-150 laboratory data. One published series followed Amsoil Signature Series 5, Yuri W30, in the same 2016 F-150 3.5-liter Eco Boost over progressively longer oil intervals. That is important. A random iron number from one engine tells us very little against another engine driven differently. Following the same truck repeatedly gives us a trend, and this trend was impressive. Across 3 runs, iron accumulation worked out to roughly 1.7, 1.83, and 1.76 parts per million for every 1,000 miles. The intervals stretched, the oil aged, yet the iron wear rate barely changed. Around 12,000 miles, the owner still considered the oil to be performing comfortably. Then another real F-150 result made Amsoil look even stronger. A separate Signature Series run in a 2.7-liter EcoBoost reached nearly 19,700 miles. Iron was 37 parts per million. Copper was 5. Insolubles were just 0.1%. Viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius was 9.47 centistokes. Then came the number that really mattered. TBN was still 3.8. TBN gives us an indication of how much acid neutralizing reserve remains in the oil. Seeing 3.8 after almost 20,000 miles is exactly the kind of result an expensive extended service oil needs. At this stage, Amsoil looked brutal. It was not winning because somebody printed premium on the bottle. There was genuine F-150 evidence showing impressive protection at intervals most owners would never attempt. At 10,000 miles, there was another reason Amsoil looked so convincing. The wear trend stayed boring. That is exactly what you want from oil analysis. Dramatic numbers make good thumbnails, but stable wear is the real victory. When iron stays predictable as mileage climbs, it suggests the lubricant is not suddenly losing control of the engine's normal wear pattern. That gave Amsoil an early advantage. It was not just surviving long intervals, it was doing so without creating the kind of wear spike that would make an owner panic and drain it immediately. Extended drain oil only makes financial sense if the engine stays comfortable while the interval stretches. A product that remains in service but produces ugly wear trends would not be saving anybody money. In this same engine series, the trend stayed remarkably calm. For a moment, the comparison looked finished. If Amsoil can keep protecting that far, why buy anything else? Because the idea here does not ask which oil can survive the longest. It asks which one is worth the price. Amsoil's own data was about to reveal why those are two completely different questions. Then Amsoil showed us its limit. Push an oil far enough and eventually something changes. In that same longitudinal F-150 Amsoil series, extending the interval did not suddenly send iron through the roof. That was impressive. Instead, the lubricant itself started showing age. Oxidation climbed from roughly 48 to 60 on the later run. Viscosity increased by about 10%. Remaining reserve declined. The owner eventually concluded that pushing to roughly 15,500 miles was too far for that particular truck and operating pattern. That is not a failure. It is a useful boundary. Even an extremely capable oil eventually reaches a point where heat, fuel dilution, turbocharging, driving pattern, and engine condition matter more than the promise on the bottle. Amsoil still held the protection lead. But now there was a problem. If your F-150 gets fresh oil at 5, 7, or even 9,000 miles, how much of that extreme endurance are you actually using? At 5,000 miles, probably very little. Push toward 10,000 and the extra reserve becomes more relevant. Go considerably farther under suitable conditions, and Amsoil finally gets the chance to show why it costs more. That distinction would eventually decide the test. An advantage can be completely real and still be poor value if you never use it. The first thing to reach its practical limit was not an alarming wear trend. It was the condition of the oil itself. That is exactly how you want a premium lubricant to reach its boundary, gradually and visibly, before the wear data gives you a reason to panic. Amsoil had proved it could go long. Pennzoil now had to prove something completely different. Could it comfortably cover the mileage normal owners actually need without making them pay heavily for protection they may never use? Its real F-150 analysis landed almost perfectly around our next checkpoint, and one number changed the fight. 1.7. At 20,000 miles, Pennzoil changed. The question. Pennzoil Ultra Platinum entered from a different direction. Amsoil sells Extreme Reserve. Pennzoil sells premium synthetic chemistry at a price you can still find on a normal retail shelf. Its Pure Plus story begins with gas to liquid technology, producing a synthetic base stock from natural gas. Interesting? Yes. Enough to win? No. We needed actual mileage. A published Blackstone-supported F-150 analysis gave us that. The owner ran Pennzoil Ultra Platinum 5W30 for 9,194 miles. That is close enough to 10,000 to make the results extremely useful. Then the sample went to the laboratory. TBN came back at 1.7. The oil was not completely depleted, but the remaining reserve was low enough that Blackstone recommended staying around 9 to 10,000 miles on the next interval, or following the truck's oil life monitor. That gives us something much better than saying Pennzoil is good. It gives us a practical limit. At roughly 9,200 miles in that particular truck and operating pattern, Ultra Platinum still had measurable reserve. There was simply little reason to prove anything by stretching it dramatically farther. Pennzoil also changed the emotional side of this comparison. Before seeing that near 10,000-mile analysis, it was easy to think of Ultra Platinum as the interesting chemistry choice sitting behind a more serious extended drain oil. After seeing the sample, that became much harder to say. The oil had reached a serious interval. The truck's oil life monitor had essentially called time. The laboratory still found reserve remaining. That matters because the average owner is not trying to win an endurance contest. They are trying to reach the next sensible service without unnecessary wear, sludge, or exhausted oil. Pennzoil was showing it could do exactly that. Its weakness was not protection over a normal interval. Its weakness was that Amsoil had more reserve, after the point where many owners would already have changed the oil. Frame the comparison that way, and Pennzoil stops looking like the oil that could not go as far. It starts looking like the oil that may already go far enough. Pennzoil was no longer chasing Amsoil's longest interval. It was proving a cheaper premium oil could cover the mileage most owners use without looking weak. At first, Amsoil still appears to win. It has F-150 evidence beyond 12,000 miles. Another run approached 20,000 and still had TBN at 3.8. Pennzoil was down to 1.7 before 10,000. Except that creates another question. How many ordinary F-150 owners need 15,000-mile oil? If you change around 8 or 9,000 miles anyway, what exactly do you gain financially? Because another oil could potentially survive 15. That is where Pennzoil became dangerous. It did not need to beat Amsoil's maximum endurance. It only needed to cover the interval its buyer actually uses. Suddenly, Amsoil's greatest strength became specific. Extreme service? Amsoil still looked incredible. Normal, responsible interval? Now, Pennzoil was standing much closer. Then Mobil 1 entered with enough laboratory reserve of its own to turn this into a real fight. Mobil 1 refused to behave like the cheap option. Mobil 1 extended performance did not need to beat Amsoil at Amsoil's game. It needed to show that a mainstream oil could provide enough protection that paying significantly more became difficult to justify. A published Blackstone analysis from a Ford F-150 5-liter V8 gave us a useful reference. The Mobil 1 Extended Performance had 7,530 miles on it. Iron was 22 parts per million, copper was 5. Insolubles were 0.2%. Viscosity at 100 degrees Celsius was 8.41 centistokes. TBN was 3.0. That last number matters. Blackstone considered the results healthy enough that it suggested trying roughly 9,500 miles on the next interval. Now, look at the three oils. Amsoil had genuine F-150 evidence of excellent wear control beyond 12,000 miles, with another example approaching 20,000. Pennzoil had a real sample around 9,200 miles with TBN at 1.7. Mobil 1 had a real F-150 sample at 7,500 with TBN at 3.0, and enough reserve for Blackstone to suggest going farther. These reports came from different engines and operating conditions, so comparing the raw wear numbers as if they came from one laboratory shootout would be misleading. But they established something more important. None of these oils was weak. That created a serious problem for Amsoil. If Mobil 1 had shown ugly wear or exhausted reserve early, the expensive oil would have had an easy victory. It did not. If Pennzoil had looked finished after 5,000 miles, Amsoil could have justified its premium immediately. It did not. The expensive oil remained strongest at the extreme. The cheaper alternatives simply refused to become bad enough to make that extra strength essential. Mobil 1 then gained another advantage that does not appear in one laboratory column: repeatability. Across 50,000 miles, you are not making one oil decision. You are making that decision again and again. A product that is easy to find, replace, and price shop reduces the friction around every service. That sounds minor beside iron and TBN, but ownership is full of small things that become meaningful when repeated. Need an extra quart? Mobil 1 is easy to find. See a sale? You can take advantage of it. Need a top-up during a road trip? You are less likely to hunt for the exact product. None of that makes the oil protect better inside the engine. It makes the maintenance routine easier to sustain. Across 50,000 miles, that practical advantage starts carrying real weight, because the best maintenance plan is the one an owner can repeat without turning every oil change into a surge. That meant our next test could no longer be about which bottle had the most capability. We had to ask how much capability our F-150 owner was actually buying. That is where the money started hurting Amsoil. At 30,000 miles, Amsoil's biggest strength became its problem. Take a conservative 5,000-mile oil change routine across 50,000 miles. That means 10 oil changes, 10 filters, 10 refills. Now, imagine paying a premium every time for extended drain capability while never extending the drain. The protection margin still exists. You simply never convert that endurance into fewer services. This is where Amsoil splits owners into two groups. The first group can genuinely exploit what Signature Series offers: high annual mileage, hard towing, long highway operation, extreme temperatures, carefully managed longer intervals. For those owners, Amsoil's extra reserve has a job: stretch an appropriate interval safely, and the higher bottle price can be spread across more miles and potentially fewer changes. The second group changes oil at 5,000 miles regardless. That owner repeatedly buys extreme endurance and repeatedly drains the oil long before approaching it. Amsoil's real laboratory data actually makes this argument stronger. We know its wear control capability can remain impressive well beyond ordinary intervals. That is precisely why draining it extremely early can make the premium harder to justify. The oil has not become worse. Your use has simply failed to take advantage of what made it expensive. For severe service, Amsoil was still my first choice of these three. For ordinary service, Pennzoil and Mobil 1 were getting dangerously close. Now, Pennzoil was about to look like the smartest purchase in the entire test. Pennzoil suddenly looked like the winner. This was the reversal I did not expect. Ultra Platinum did not have Amsoil's extreme endurance evidence. It did not need it. Its real F-150 sample had already reached 9,194 miles. TBN was 1.7. Would I push that exact fill another 5,000 miles? No. The laboratory guidance did not support it. Would I worry that the oil was approaching the end of its reserve around the same point the truck was asking for service? Also no. Change it. Refill it. Keep driving. That is enough for a huge number of owners, and enough is devastating in a value comparison. Your engine does not put unused oil life into a savings account. If you drain an oil at 8,000 miles, you do not receive a refund because it might have survived 15. That made Pennzoil's premium chemistry much more interesting. It was not a bargain oil desperately hanging on. It was a serious synthetic showing useful real-world performance near the interval many owners might actually run. Amsoil remained the endurance champion. Pennzoil suddenly looked like the rational buyer's choice. Then Mobil 1 asked one final question. If both mainstream oils already cover the interval you actually need, what exactly makes one worth choosing over the other? That turned the second half of our 50,000-mile comparison into a much tighter battle. If Amsoil still has your vote, tell me in the comments right now. Subscribe if you like comparisons where expensive products actually have to prove the premium instead of winning because of the label. Keep your choice in mind. This is because from here, Amsoil stops being the obvious favorite. Now, Pennzoil and Mobil 1 start fighting over your wallet. At 40,000 miles, Pennzoil and Mobil 1 were almost tied. Imagine a normal F-150 owner, regular commuting, highway driving, occasional loads, maybe some towing, responsible oil changes, no obsession with stretching every fill until the laboratory begs for mercy. Pennzoil makes a brilliant case. Premium synthetic chemistry, credible near 10,000-mile F-150 evidence, mainstream availability. No need to redesign your maintenance routine to justify buying it. Mobil 1 answers with almost the same argument. Real F-150 analysis. 22 ppm iron after 7,500 miles, 5 ppm copper, 0.2% insolubles. TBN 3.0, Blackstone comfortable suggesting roughly 9,500 miles. Which one wins? From those separate laboratory reports alone, neither. The Pennzoil sample ran longer. The engines and operating conditions were different. Mobil 1 had more remaining TBN, but it had also accumulated fewer miles. The useful conclusion is that both produced credible evidence for normal F-150 service. That pushes the decision somewhere far less glamorous. Practicality. This is where Mobil 1 becomes almost annoyingly good. Pennzoil feels more interesting. Its gas-to-liquid chemistry gives enthusiasts something to talk about. Mobil 1's advantage is simpler. Find the correct bottle, buy it, use it, find it again next time. Maintenance is repetition. Oil, filter, drive, then do it again. Mobil 1 is widely available at big box stores, parts retailers, and online. Need another quart? Easy. Need the same oil during a trip? Usually easy. Need to compare prices? Plenty of sellers compete for your money. Pennzoil is also widely available, which is why this fight stayed extremely close. That was the danger for Mobil 1. Pennzoil needed to stay close on protection and beat it at checkout. One sale could erase Mobil 1's practical advantage. At 40,000 miles, I could still believe Pennzoil might win. Its chemistry was strong, its real-world evidence was credible. Its practical interval made sense. Mobil 1 needed one final advantage, and it found it when we stopped asking which oil was more interesting, and asked which decision would be easiest to repeat over 50,000 miles. Amsoil won. Protection, but lost. The overall test. Before the final showdown, Amsoil deserves its trophy. If my F-150 lived a brutal life, Signature Series would be the first oil of these three I would investigate. Heavy towing, extreme heat, huge annual mileage, properly monitored longer intervals. That is where the published F-150 laboratory evidence becomes meaningful. Stable iron wear rates around 1.7 to 1.83 ppm per 1,000 miles across increasingly long intervals are impressive. A separate F-150 run approaching 19,700 miles still returned a TBN of 3.8. That is real endurance. Amsoil wins extreme protection. But our title asks something different. Which oil was worth the price? For an average owner using ordinary service intervals, Amsoil gives you capability you may never reach. That does not make the oil overpriced for everyone. It makes the value dependent on how you use the truck. If you need the headroom, pay for it. If you never approach it, the mainstream alternatives become harder to ignore. Amsoil therefore leaves the overall fight with something important. Respect, just not the final trophy. Now it came down to Pennzoil and Mobil 1. Pennzoil was closer than I expected. At 50,000 miles, Pennzoil nearly stole it. Forget brand loyalty for a moment. Look only at what we know. Pennzoil Ultra Platinum had a genuine F-150 sample at 9,194 miles. TBN was 1.7. The oil had measurable reserve, but Blackstone saw little reason to stretch dramatically farther. That is perfectly useful for a normal ownership strategy. Use it. Change it at a sensible interval. Repeat. Mobil 1. Extended Performance had 22 ppm iron after 7,530 miles in its published F-150 sample. Copper was 5. Insolubles were 0.2%. TBN was 3.0. Blackstone considered the report healthy enough to suggest extending toward 9,500 miles. Again, separate engines. No fake laboratory knockout. Both products gave us credible evidence that they could handle ordinary F-150 service. That is exactly why Pennzoil nearly won. Ultra Platinum is a serious product. The chemistry is compelling. Its near 10,000-mile F-150 result is useful. If Pennzoil costs meaningfully less than Mobil 1 when I walk into the store, I buy Pennzoil. No hesitation. If both cost exactly the same, this becomes extremely close. The top two fight, therefore, became less about proving one lubricant technically superior and more about finding a reason to reject either one. Pennzoil had the chemistry story, a credible near 10,000-mile sample, and enough performance for the interval most normal owners would consider sensible. Mobil 1 had a healthy F-150 report, meaningful remaining TBN, extended service positioning, and enormous availability. That is why the final results should feel close. If Pennzoil had shown obvious weakness, Mobil 1 would win too easily. If Mobil 1 carried a major practical disadvantage, Pennzoil could take the value crown. Instead, both kept removing the other's arguments. Pennzoil proved mainstream availability does not mean ordinary chemistry. Mobil 1 proved familiar does not mean basic. By the final stage, the winner needed an advantage that mattered every time the truck came due for service. Not just one impressive laboratory number. Mobil 1 needed one specific reason to win, not another marketing claim, not some magical additive. Repeatability. Mobil 1. Extended Performance combines credible F-150 laboratory evidence, meaningful service reserve, broad availability, and a buying process that requires almost no planning. It is easy to find today. Easy to find next time. Easy to top up. Easy to price shop. Most importantly, you do not have to exploit an extreme oil interval to make the purchase feel sensible. That was the difference. A small one, but enough. Before I give you the final scoreboard, make your call. Amsoil, Mobil 1, or Pennzoil. Put one name in the comments. Do not change it after the reveal, because the oil with the most impressive endurance is not taking the overall trophy. Now, we put all three side by side. Here is what the 50,000-mile comparison taught us. For extreme protection, Amsoil Signature Series wins. Its published F-150 evidence is genuinely impressive. Stable iron wear rates as intervals increased. A separate near 20,000-mile run with 37 ppm iron, 5 ppm copper, 0.1% insolubles, and TBN still at 3.8. If you actually need extended service capability, Amsoil gives you a reason to pay for it. For premium chemistry and strong practical value, Pennzoil Ultra Platinum nearly stole the test. Its real F-150 sample reached 9,194 miles, with TBN at 1.7. Not an extreme drain champion, a serious oil that reached a sensible real-world change point, with measurable reserve remaining. Then, Mobil 1 Extended Performance. 22 ppm iron at 7,500 miles, 5 ppm copper, 0.2% insolubles. TBN 3.0. Blackstone thought roughly 9,500 miles was worth trying. Add broad availability and practical service capability, and Mobil 1 becomes difficult to argue against. Notice what did not happen. That is why the final decision stayed close. Mobil 1 did not crush Pennzoil. Its package was easier to justify repeatedly. Amsoil did not fail. Pennzoil did not collapse. Mobil 1 did not destroy them with some miraculous laboratory result. All three were good enough that the winner depended on which strengths an average owner would actually use. That is what makes the result useful. So, which oil was actually worth the price? For the average F-150 owner, I am buying Mobil 1 Extended Performance. If I were towing heavily, running severe heat, piling on enormous annual mileage, or carefully managing extended intervals, I would look very hard at Amsoil. Its laboratory evidence earns that respect. If Pennzoil Ultra Platinum is noticeably cheaper when I shop, I would happily buy Pennzoil. It came that close. But put all three in front of me for ordinary F-150 use at sensible service intervals. Mobil 1 gets my money. Amsoil gives you the most extreme capability. Pennzoil gives you premium chemistry and a strong mainstream alternative. Mobil 1 gives you the balance that is hardest to argue against. Protection, reserve, availability, practicality, value. That gives us the final result. Best extreme protection, Amsoil Signature Series. Best chemistry and value. Challenger's Pennzoil Ultra Platinum. Best overall value. Mobil 1 Extended Performance. Amsoil impressed me most. Pennzoil surprised me most. Mobil 1 is the one I would actually buy. That is the difference most oil comparisons miss. The strongest product does not automatically deserve your money. The cheapest product does not automatically save you money. The winner is the oil that gives your engine the protection it actually needs without making you pay for capability your ownership pattern never uses. For this F-150 comparison, that balance belongs to Mobil 1. Now I want to know where you stand. If all three were sitting in front of you today, which one goes into your F-150? Amsoil, Mobil 1, or Pennzoil? Tell me in the comments. Hey, thanks for watching. Want to see what happens when supposedly long-life oil filters are pushed to their real limit? Click the video showing on the left. And if you want more real-world car comparisons where the expensive product actually has to earn its price, hit that subscribe button.